Okay, again, my name is Kelly, and I'll be the proctor, I guess, for this. And the questions are going to be around what is the role of faith in providing support for homeless individuals? The first question is, how do you think faith-based organizations can uniquely contribute to providing support and resources for homeless individuals and their communities?
Well, we have a lot of need for volunteers here, and I think the first thing that faith communities need to do is step in the door. It's really hard for us to say, well, there's a Lutheran church down the block and a Catholic church down the other block, and you could go here, there, or whatever church you wanted to, when they don't feel like they've necessarily been welcomed. People feel like they have a scarlet letter. They feel like they're invisible. And really, the first step is to have faith communities come in the door at the mission and get to know our clients and be that welcoming group that welcomes them from the mission to their church.
Thank you.
I think faith-based organizations are uniquely equipped to support our homeless because they're not constrained by finances. They're not constrained by policies. What is the unifying factor for any faith-based organization is love. And love of mankind, love of a higher power. So I think that is how we can serve our homeless community best as faith-based organizations, because we're blind to all of those other things when we are able to allow our faith to guide how we help our community versus a grant, versus if there's money available, versus what a policy is, versus whether it's business operating hours for an organization. Faith knows no timeline, it knows no color, it knows no gender, it just is only based on love. And being able to provide that love and support will allow our homeless community to feel supported without having all of those other social ties.
Thank you.
I'm probably a little, excuse me, a little more pragmatic in looking at this because my function here is to go get money so we can operate here. And one of the things that any faith-based community has is somebody in the position where they have a holy pulpit. And that's the place where the message can be carried. That's the place where introductions can be made. That's the place that people can be encouraged. Call the mission, volunteer at the mission, go tour the mission, or our church is going to put on a picnic at the mission. It would be a great time for you to come over, serve a burger, meet some clients, and meet some other folks that are centered around the mission community. When I look at Grand Forks, I look at a whole lot of Lutherans and a whole lot of Catholics, and we have a whole lot of other stuff here that I do not want to see them become disenfranchised either, but nonetheless, as Maddie said, if the underlying theme is love, and the person who's speaking on Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday, whatever it might be, can convince people that this is a worthwhile endeavor, this is something that needs to be done, this is part of loving your neighbor, we need to, I think, first of all and foremost, engage the leaders of the faith-based communities.
Thank you.
I don't know what to say on this.
And you don't have to answer. If you don't have an answer, don't want it, you can just let me know and then we'll just start on the next one.
I'll pass.
Okay, next question is, in what ways can faith communities help address for spiritual and emotional needs of homeless individuals in addition to providing practical assistance?
So I think there are a lot of people here that are really struggling, and people that have a lot of guilt because of the things that maybe brought them to homelessness, broken relationships. There's a lot of hurt that happens, and I think that faith communities can help by just showing up, by being a kind and loving person, by doing a Bible study to help show people just where it says even in the Bible that, we all have sins. And let him who is without cast the first stone. And what that even means. And just help people to understand that grace is for all of us. And then to be that welcoming person who walks in faith and who shows people what that looks like. You can talk the talk, but do you walk the walk and show our clients what that means? That's a big deal. Because a lot of people are outcast from their families, they're outcast from society. They really need to know that they're loved and not judged, and that's a big deal.
Faith-based communities, in my opinion, can help address the spiritual and emotional needs of homeless individuals outside of the practical application, because I'm going to revert to how I answered the first question. Because of that faith, that love, that belief in something bigger than themselves, knowing that the practical part of homelessness is only part of putting the puzzle back together, mending those pieces back together. Just because we have shelter or a meal in our belly doesn't mean that our heart is being fixed, that our other practical and emotional needs are being met. So believing in a higher power, a faith-based, spiritual-based practice, and incorporating that with practical, with the practical assistance for members of the community, their homelessness, I think that is fundamental. And it's really easy to start a meal, which is a step to addressing those things, with a prayer. So we literally start the process of those practical assistance matters with a prayer, a spiritual component, and a meal. Even if you're not ready to receive it, just hearing it sometimes over and over and over again, and knowing that someone else has faith in you like they do in their religion or their spirituality, I think that goes a long way to supporting someone that's experiencing homelessness.
When I look at this, I think of the common thread that runs through all of the religions I can think of, and I don't care if it's Shintoism, Buddhism, the greatest commandment of Christianity, of love your neighbor as yourself, assuming that we start at that baseline. In addition to providing practical assistance, when I think of that, I do think of volunteerism, and I think of food, and I think of money, because that's what I think about all day long, for one thing. But when we talk about love for one another, let's not talk about it, let's show it. And how do you show it? You show it by showing up. And if that's called practical assistance, I apologize for not following the instructions of the question, but until you show up, people don't know you're out there. They don't know that you have not given up on them completely if you don't come and show them that, no, I've not given up on you. I'm here for you. And I have lived experience, and without a higher power of some sort, and people that were followers of that higher power, I would definitely not be sitting here today. That doesn't mean I would have made a career change. That means I just wouldn't be sitting anywhere today. But people showed me, we care about you, and they showed up. So it matters.
I have lived experience in homelessness and addiction, but my faith in the God stuff, I'm still learning about it. I guess I'm going to a meeting tonight
Because it's 7 o'clock.
at 7 o'clock. So I don't know really much about God, but I know that all these clients here are a huge part of my recovery. Same with the staff. Yeah, I guess.
You're doing
That's
fine.
great. That's great.
Doing
That's
great.
absolutely what we need to hear. Absolutely.
Yeah. What difference did people like Paul make in your world? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're doing terrific.
Yeah.
You're telling people what. Yeah. You're,
Again, remember, there's no right or wrong answer.
yeah.
You
except-
speak from your heart.
Yours are wrong.
Oh, you're doing a great job.
Yours are wrong, but everybody else is
I'm just scared and nervous for some reason.
Uh, We're all friendly here. Next question.
It's not a quiz on what you know on the Bible, Jason.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, that's
about
what-
kindness and empathy and people of faith and what input they can have.
I don't think there's any way we can flunk this at this point. So, let's look at it that way.
You'll know if you flunk when we don't offer you no food. You're doing fine. Okay, next question. How do you believe faith-based initiatives can collaborate with other community organizations and service providers to create a more comprehensive support network for homeless individuals?
We all need to work at not being siloed. The mission can't just handle homelessness. The police department just can't handle homelessness. A church is not equipped to just handle homelessness. But together, we all have specialties. We all have certain skills and things we can come up with and put together. And we all end up dealing with the same people. It's the same people that come to the door of a church asking money as it is out standing on a street corner, as it is people who come here for meals or have contact with the police department in the middle of the night because they're unsheltered. We're all dealing with the same groups of people, and we just have to start working together and understand that even though they may be a church and we might be the mission and the police department is over here and they do their thing, we're all serving the same community, and ultimately, hopefully, everybody is serving the Lord. And if we can all work together to say, we have people here who are hurting, how do we the community, we the body of Christ, how do we work together? And sometimes it just means coming and sitting at the same table and having discussions together instead of just in the confines of our own walls and our own groups and our own churches.
I don't know how much we're supposed to share about our own personal experiences for this. So if I am overstepping, Chaplain Anna, I apologize in advance, and please feel free to edit this out. I'm a member of the Armed Forces, and I have been for quite some time. And 80% of missions in the military fail because of communication failure. So the number one way that faith-based initiatives can collaborate with other community partners is to communicate so that we have shared mutual understanding. Identify our challenges, and then identify our each individual organizational strengths. And we might not be able to cover 100% of a problem, but when we come together and we talk about it and we devise a plan and then execute that plan, we can work together as a community, faith-based, social-based, law enforcement-based. government-based to overcome the challenges that are facing the community. And the other thing I think we need to remember between faith-based organizations and other community organizations is what community looks like. Community looks like every single person sitting at this table and the collective experiences that we've had that brought us to this table, to include being a combat veteran, to include being someone that was unhoused, to include someone that worked in law enforcement, to include someone that struggles with addiction. So bringing all that experience and knowledge to the table and working through it together, I think is the best way for us to collaborate in our community.
Thanks, thank you. The first word that popped into my head when I saw this question was about the third word that came out of Sue's mouth, which was silo. About 10 years ago, I worked for another organization. I was on the other side of granting. It was an organization that granted money, not went scrounging for grants. And that was when I first was invited over here to the mission, to some meetings of philanthropic organizations. And I got to see some really dandy infighting among organizations and between organizations, and arguments about how do we approach this and what's wrong with the way you approach it compared to the way I approach it. And when I look at this, my first thought is maybe, just maybe, I mean, things that sort of put things together with a couple of organizations now, a little bit, just the beginning of, you know, the homeless helpers, stuff like that. But on the other hand, people are all still walking around looking over their shoulders. They're afraid that somebody's going to steal their funding because there's a limited pool, and a lot of us are going after the same money. That's a problem. A lot of us talk about we don't care the way other people do things, and people sling phrases around like best practices, things like that. So what does this have to do with faith-based organizations? It seems to me that that could be the place where we finally can meet and make peace. If we can find faith-based organizations that can get us to meet with leaders that somehow stitch us back together, rather than allow us to just continue on in our, oh, believe me, they exist and they're very real, our silos. So I would love to see them gone. I think we have a lot of brain power, we have a lot of firepower, we have the ability to attack some of these problems in a far more efficient way. But somebody needs to bang our heads together or lock us all in a room until we can come to some sort of consensus about how we do this. Sorry, Sue.
I guess for me, I think there just need to be better communication and bondage with the Grand Forks City, with the other organizations, and just kind of get together, be a team, and work on it.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Can you discuss the importance of compassion and empathy in the approach of faith-based organizations towards homeless individuals, and how it can impact the effectiveness of their support efforts?
I think a lot of faith-based organizations and churches struggle with compassion and empathy. It's all good when it's somebody who looks like us and smells like us and talks like us, eats like us, yeah, but when they don't, we struggle. They're not us. Even so much as they're a different faith than we are. They go to a different church than we do, so therefore they're different than us. And, you know, it's hard for a lot of people, whether they belong to a church or not, to come up to somebody at the doors of the mission who's kind of mangy looking and smelly and maybe mentally ill, and to figure out, how do I show compassion to this person? I don't want him to come over to my house. I don't want to tell him my name. Do I give them money? What do they like? What did they, everything is a they. What did they like to do? What did they like to eat? And we just have to understand that the theys are we's. And if you come in here and you spend time here and you truly get to know the person as a person and not a homeless person, you get to develop a relationship with them, and you find out they're funny and they're smart and they have skill sets and they miss their families and they're sorry about the mess that they've created in their life and they're scared about where they're going to be living. But they're people. And so we need to get past what somebody looks like or sounds like or what they eat or what color their skin is and get to that true compassion and empathy and love. And then it all just kind of falls into place. But it's so scary for so many people. That's why the backpack program has been a big thing here, because it helps get people in the door. And once they come here for a few times, they find out we're not what flew over the cuckoo's nest. We're a pretty calm place where people are coming and going and doing their stuff, and you know, there's smells and sights and sounds, and today it was a lot more than smelly because the sewer backed up, but you know, we have meals being prepared, and you hear people talking about jobs or frustrations, or it sounds like a home. And people just need to get past their fear and let their compassion and empathy take over.
Compassion and empathy, the hallmark of a true leader, regardless in what capacity, whether it's in your church, your community, your social organization, your job. Good leaders are compassionate and empathetic. And that needs to be applied to all aspects of life. Whether you're sitting at a desk, whether you're working or volunteering among your community. And it's incredibly important. I'm just going to reiterate what Sue touched on. We have to have compassion and empathy. If we say we're compassionate and empathy, we have to show that all the time. And faith-based organizations, again, we're taught that regardless of whether we go to church or synagogue or temple or a mosque, that are those of us that are faith-based individuals, that we need to have compassion and empathy for everyone. And I do want to talk about that is important, but it's really easy to get fatigued. And so good leaders need to find a way to practice compassion. They need to practice empathy, and they need to do it judiciously so that they do not get fatigued, because then the overall mission, and that is to serve and help our community and to reduce our homelessness, and to help individuals experiencing homelessness, are affected. So it's incredibly important. I think it's something that faith-based organizations do very well, but it is something that everyone needs to do, because it can't just be the faith-based organizations, because we're going to get tired and we're going to get that fatigue, and when that fatigue runs out, if it's not us, then who? So.
I'm probably going to irritate Sue some more here, but drives her nuts in some of my communications with donors. I have sort of background in religious studies, and I'll start talking about Shintoism and things like that, and she's like, no, don't do that. You know, and she's right, I get that. My point is, I don't know. I can't tell you the difference between Presbyterians and Methodists and Episcopalians and you know, get your laundry list of Protestants out there. And was a Catholic. I don't know exactly what kind of Catholic you would call me now. But when I look at this question, I think about, I'm not sure I can answer this question with regard to faith-based organizations, but I can certainly answer it with regard to human beings. That without compassion, empathy, equanimity, you can't take care of yourself, so how will you be able to take care of somebody else? And I tend to get annoyed, and I think about things like in Bertrand Russell's book, Why I Am Not a Christian, where he talks about, you know, Jesus Christ said, give away everything you have and follow me. Well, show me somebody who does, and that's compassion and empathy. I don't have it. I got some of it, but I don't have that. And I don't think faith-based organizations are going to be encouraging that. Maybe they'll be encouraging people to, why don't you make do with one less jet ski down at the lake and see if you can't give us to the mission. I don't know. I'm not saying people need to be shamed into this, but I'm saying people need to be exposed to it. Again, this goes back to the way I answered a question before. They need to see this. They need to see the clients. They need to find out that the clients are people. They're not the other, no matter what color they are, no matter how they behave. These are human beings. They're not others. And too often they're thought of, you know, I'll send some money to them at Thanksgiving time, or I'll volunteer to deliver meals, or Giving Hearts Day comes around once a year, and I gave them a couch and I've done my duty, and all of that's appreciated. But does that come from compassion and empathy? I don't know where it comes from necessarily, but we need people to know the people who stay with us and know that they are indeed human beings, and they are, as Sue said, they are unique, wonderful human beings. Not that every day is all bluebirds and lemonade here, because there's some bad behavior here. We have a lot of mental illness here. But they're people too. So come see them.
I guess
You can do it. Got it.
You know this better than any of us sitting here, Jason. You know it. We'll wait for you.
compassion is pretty huge. I checked in here on March 28th of 2018. And I came here, I got released from jail, came here with a pair of pants, socks, pair of winter boots, and a jacket. And when I left here, I had an apartment building. I had an apartment. Sue hired me. So she hired me, and now I have a new truck. I can't do this.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
Keep going,
do
you
it.
got it.
You already are.
You go fishing every weekend, I don't do that.
So, yeah, I don't know where I left off.
But you got a truck.
Yeah, I got a truck. I got my license, which I never had. Well, I had one like 20 years ago. Never owned a truck.
You went on vacation for the first time?
Went on vacation for the first time. I go fishing almost every week. And it's something that something I enjoy doing. Something I never had. So my goal is to open up my own detailing place, and I want to hire people from the mission. That's my. I can't.
No, you did great.
That's why you're my friend.
Okay, last question. How do you think faith-based organizations can promote a sense of belonging and community for homeless individuals? And how might this contribute to their overall well-being and sense of hope for the future?
So I think churches and houses of worship are places, but the people, the body of Christ, needs to come out of the doors of the church and go out into the community. And when the members of the church or the faith-based community go out and welcome homeless individuals to be a part of that place of worship, to welcome them in the door in a non-judgmental fashion. And it's a there but for the grace of God go I, but it's also I have been somewhere. And it may not have been the same place you were. It may not have been the same circumstances as you. But I'm not perfect either. And God accepts each of us as we are, and we welcome you to be here. That is so critical, to be seen, to be loved, to not be judged. Our clients are only here about an average of 30 days. And at the end of those 30 days, they're out living in this community. And if we continue to segment the thems from the us's and not become a we will never be a healthy community. If it's always them over there, oh, they're walking down the street, they must be homeless. And when it's a us and a them, it's not a we. And our faith communities need to step out of the church and welcome people to join us. Because we can sit in the prettiest church in town and just sit there and wait for people to come. But until we know we're welcome, we'll never set foot in the door.
I'm going to begin at the end of this question. And the question is, how might this contribute to faith-based organizations promoting that sense of belonging? How might it contribute to persons experiencing homelessness, their overall well-being and sense of hope for the future? Hope is a fundamental cornerstone for recovery. That's in all the literature, it's in all the anecdotal evidence, it's in anyone you've ever talked to that's struggled and is in recovery. And if you're experiencing homelessness, you're kind of in recovery a little bit, because you maybe had somewhere to live before and now you don't. So faith-based organizations need to be able to promote that sense of hope outside of the walls, outside of that community that comes there, that isn't experiencing those same things as the population that is experiencing homelessness. Give back that hope and some control, because even though I've not experienced homelessness, it's absolutely terrifying to me to not be in control of where or when I can eat, or be safe, or have a roof over my head, be warm. Those are fundamental needs that scientifically need to be met in order for us to grow and participate as part of the community. So offering that hope by inviting those community members, because they are community members. There is no they, there is no them, doesn't matter what you look like. Inviting them in to whatever it is you're doing. It doesn't necessarily need to be the church, but that's a great place to start. Inviting everyone to experience community events, faith-based, community-based. Invite them in. Give hope. Give some level of control back that you have the choice to make to be part of this community, because we want you here.
I think sometimes people feel like to reach out and to touch people at the mission, they need some sort of street smarts. There's some sort of code. There's something going on that separates them from me. That's not true at all. When you take people like Sue, for example, I have lived experience, but I learned something from her on a regular basis about, no, Marie, that's not the way domestic violence victims behave as a general rule. You know, things that I accept as, I don't know, folk wisdom, I guess. It's wrong. And you learn as you go. And you can't learn anything about other people if you aren't curious about other people. So we go back around again to the beginning of this. How do we get faith-based organizations, people in the community, to come here and recognize that the 7-foot-tall black man wearing a robe that stays here is not the other. He's not an alien. He's a human being. Granted, we don't live in the most diverse community I've ever lived in. To be sure, I could name a few that definitely are diverse. But that's not what makes the difference. The difference comes in, we can tell you really pretty stories, and we write about them in our newsletters. And they're, you know, this guy came here and he did well, and now he's got an apartment and a job, got back together with his wife and kids. It's just a beautiful thing. But we can also tell you stories of those that spin, crash, and burn repeatedly, come back like a revolving door, and then they die. And that happens too. But the sense of belonging for the individuals is not going to come by being in your church with your beliefs. They need to see you. They need you to talk to them. They don't necessarily need you to say, come to this Methodist church, or come over to Sacred Heart, or whatever the case may be. They need you to clearly acknowledge their humanity and acknowledge that no matter where they are or what they are, acknowledge their spirituality, because they're often ill physically, emotionally, mentally, but they're ill spiritually. That's almost a sure bet when you talk to somebody here. Spirituality's gone off the rails, and until that gets straightened out, real joy and real happiness are pretty hard to come by. Yeah, can't do that anymore, so.
I guess what makes important one for me is a sense of hope for the future. Cause I remember when I checked into the mission, I thought it was just a place to stay. Well, and of course with my addiction and stuff, I woke up at 7 a.m., made breakfast, and I pretty much did chores till 10 p.m. at night, just to keep my mind busy. Then I started looking up the mission and stuff, and a mission of hope. Should be dreams come true. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be like my dad. My dad was he worked at the hospital for 47 years in maintenance, and he was a supervisor and manager. And then, since I came to the mission, I started out as a janitor, and then a maintenance supervisor job opened up, and I got that. And it was like, ever since I've been here, even as a client till now, all my dreams have come true. And it's all the staff, the employees, and the clients. And it's kind of cool when I see ex-clients come here, they come up, they got a new car, they got their apartment still, and they come here and talk to me, which is,
Tell them who the peer support specialist is.
and I'm a peer sports specialist. I'm sorry, I'm
It's
just
not something I mentioned.
getting all emotional, I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
That is fine. Not necessary. Okay, that concludes the questions. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add before we close? Okay, I'd like to thank everyone.
I'm curious. I'm hoping that we all get the follow-up on this, whatever comes of this. I'd love to see that, or phase 2 of this, because
Invitation to graduation.
there you go. I didn't think of that.
Kelly, yeah.
That would mean food and drinks.
Oh,
wouldn't it?
We desperately need that next step to happen we want that message to go out to faith communities so that they do come in, so that they do come in and then come back and come back and come back, and so that those faces can be familiar faces to our clients, and
Yes.
that our clients do feel welcome, not just by the community, but by, most importantly, a faith community, people who love them.
That's why, I say things in clumsy and annoying ways, and that's what I meant, but she's probably a bodhisattva for all I know, so she's, she knows, we all know, we're all aware of that until we can somehow bond with the rest of the community. I write stuff all the time in grant applications and refer to Grand Forks as a community. We have our community, we have our donors, our friends, our volunteers. Now we're all a community, but until this whole city becomes a community and these folks here get to be part of it, it's a fractured town that is in a very bad way. This is not a good place to live for a lot of people, because economics here are extremely complicated and extremely difficult. So, a lot of people need help.
Well, thank you very much for your participation, and I'm sure Chaplain Anna will get back with you once she puts everything together. So thanks again. You guys did great.
Thank you.
Thank you.